Before this night, everyone bowed their heads when she walked in. Her money controlled rooms, her words crushed confidence, and no one dared to answer back. But all it took was one quiet waitress, one moment of courage, and everything changed in front of everyone. What happened next shocked the rich, exposed the powerful, and proved that respect cannot be bought. If you love real stories where courage defeats fear, subscribe to the Soulbound Stories, like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and comment your thoughts below. Now, let's start this video. The moment Helena Montenegro entered the restaurant, the atmosphere changed as if someone had lowered the temperature without warning. Conversations faded, smiles stiffened, and even the soft music seemed to retreat into the background. Her heels struck the marble floor with authority, each step announcing power, wealth, and a reputation that preceded her everywhere. People avoided eye contact, not out of respect but out of fear. She did not need to raise her voice to dominate a room. Her presence alone commanded silence, and everyone had learned that defying her came at a cost. Helena chose her table with a critical eye, dismissing the one offered by the manager and demanding another closer to the window. Victor Montenegro followed her quietly, his expression unreadable, his shoulders slightly tense. Those who knew him remembered a man who once smiled easily, but years beside Helena had taught him restraint. The manager apologized repeatedly, bowing slightly as chairs were rearranged. Helena did not acknowledge the effort. She simply sat, adjusted her dress, and scanned the room as if searching for flaws that deserved punishment. Across the restaurant, Sophia tightened her grip on the tray in her hands. She had seen Helena before, had heard the stories whispered in the staff room about insults disguised as elegance. Sophia was no stranger to difficult customers, but Helena was different. There was calculation in her cruelty, a pleasure taken in reminding others of their place. When the manager assigned Sophia to the table, hesitation flickered across his face. Sophia nodded anyway. She had learned long ago that fear did not disappear by avoiding it. Sophia approached the table with steady steps and a professional smile. She greeted them politely, keeping her voice calm and respectful. Helena looked at her slowly, deliberately, as if measuring how much power she could exert. There was a pause long enough to feel intentional. Then came the first remark, sharp and dismissive, about the delay, about incompetence, about standards slipping. Sophia apologized without emotion and asked for their order. Helena responded with complexity, changing ingredients, correcting pronunciations, interrupting repeatedly just to assert control. As the evening progressed, the tension grew heavier. Helena snapped her fingers instead of speaking Sophia's name. She criticized the temperature of the soup, then the timing of the service, then the way Sophia placed the glass on the table. Each comment was louder than necessary, meant to be heard. Nearby diners shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. No one wanted to become a target. Victor stared at his plate, saying nothing, his silence a quiet surrender learned over years of survival beside his wife. Then came the accident. As Sophia leaned forward to place a dish, Helena's elbow brushed the wine glass. Red liquid spilled across the white tablecloth and splashed onto Helena's black dress. The room froze. For a brief second, there was stillness. Then Helena stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Her face flushed with anger, eyes blazing as she pointed at Sophia, accusing her loudly, cruelly, humiliating her in front of everyone. Sophia felt her heartbeat thunder in her chest, but she did not step back. She did not rush to apologize for something she had not done. Instead, she gently set the tray down, a small act that felt impossibly heavy. The room held its breath as Sophia lifted her eyes and met Helena's gaze. Her voice was calm, controlled, but firm when she spoke. She stated the truth plainly, without aggression, without fear, and something shifted in the air. Helena laughed in disbelief, stepping closer, asserting her status, reminding Sophia of the gap between them. The words were meant to crush, to restore order through intimidation. But Sophia remained still. She spoke again, not louder, not softer, but stronger. She spoke of dignity, of respect, of lines that should not be crossed. The whispers grew louder, eyes widened. In that moment, it became clear that this confrontation was no longer just about spilled wine. It was about power being challenged for the first time. Helena's expression hardened, disbelief slowly twisting into fury as she realized the room was no longer entirely under her control. She demanded that Sophia apologize immediately, her voice sharp and commanding, echoing through the restaurant. Sophia listened without interrupting, her posture straight, her hands steady at her sides. When Helena finished, Sophia spoke again, explaining calmly that accidents happen, but humiliation is a choice. Her words were not dramatic, yet they carried weight, striking something deeper than anger. The silence that followed felt heavier than any shout, and people began to look at Helena differently. The manager rushed forward, panic written across his face, offering compensation, dry cleaning, anything to calm the situation. Helena dismissed him with a wave of her hand, insisting that Sophia be fired on the spot. The threat was clear, final, and cruel. Sophia glanced at the manager, then at the room full of strangers watching closely. She understood the risk she was taking. Jobs like hers were not easy to replace, and responsibilities waited at home. Still, something inside her refused to bend. Slowly, deliberately, she removed her apron and placed it on the table. Her voice was steady when she said she would not serve someone who believed money justified cruelty. She added that if standing up for basic respect cost her job, she would accept it. A murmur moved through the crowd. Helena scoffed, calling it a performance, insisting that no one truly cared about a waitress's pride. But before she could continue, a single clap broke the silence. Then another. A man at a nearby table stood up, nodding at Sophia. Others followed, rising quietly, not shouting, not cheering, but standing in support. Helena turned slowly, scanning the room as realization dawned on her face. This was unfamiliar territory. Fear, once her weapon, now reflected back at her. Victor finally stood, his chair scraping the floor much like Helena's had earlier. His voice was calm but resolute as he addressed the room and then his wife. He acknowledged that Sophia was right and admitted that he had stayed silent for too long. His words were not an attack, but they were final. He said dignity mattered more than image, and that tonight marked an end. Helena stared at him, stunned, demanding to know if he would truly embarrass her publicly for a waitress. Victor shook his head and replied that the real embarrassment was allowing cruelty to pass as strength. He apologized to Sophia, not as a wealthy man, but as a human being. The manager, visibly relieved yet emotional, announced that Sophia's job was secure and that the restaurant stood behind its staff. The room exhaled as tension dissolved into something lighter, something hopeful. Sophia felt her legs weaken as the moment settled in. She nodded respectfully, thanking the manager, then looked around at the people who had stood for her. Some smiled, some wiped their eyes. She realized that her stand had not just been for herself, but for everyone who had ever swallowed their voice out of fear. That night, Sophia walked home exhausted but changed. She knew consequences might still come, but she also knew she had crossed a line she would never step back from. In the days that followed, the story spread quickly. Someone had recorded part of the confrontation, and the video traveled across social media, gathering millions of views. People praised Sophia's calm courage and criticized the culture of entitlement that had protected behavior like Helena's for so long. Messages poured in from strangers thanking Sophia for reminding them of their worth. Opportunities followed, unexpected ones, offering her chances she had never imagined. Helena withdrew from public appearances, her influence quietly shrinking. Victor began making changes in his life and business, choosing accountability over silence. And Sophia continued working, not as someone afraid to be replaced, but as someone who knew her value. Her life did not become perfect overnight, but it became honest, grounded in self-respect. The fear that once ruled that restaurant lost its power, replaced by a simple truth that echoed far beyond those walls. Courage does not belong to the powerful, it belongs to those brave enough to stand.